The year 2010 started with a media campaign against Cuba by the Western mainstream press and their powerful outlets under U.S. control, a way of supporting the terrorist actions program against our country and undisputed proof of Cuba's reasons for defense. In February 2010, the Alpha 66 organization and its annual Congress approved the continuation of the violent struggle against the Cuban government. The guests included well-known terrorists Luis Posada Carriles, Osvaldo Mitad, Orlando Gutierrez, and Silvia Iriondo. Coincidentally, a few days later, on March 2010, in the wee hours of the morning, the residence of the Cuban ambassador in Guatemala was attacked with 4 shots and grenade launchers, causing material damages. The daily El Periódico ran the information as the Cuban embassy filed an official denunciation with the Guatemalan Public Ministry, registered as Verbal Denunciation MP 001 2010 31323. In June 2010, Republican Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart vindicated the validity of his father's idea in order to rekindle the counter-revolutionary organization known as La Rosa Blanca. Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart, of Cuba descent, is an extreme rightist strongly linked to the most radical U.S. policy against Cuba. In June 2010, he called on the ideas of his father, Rafael Díaz-Balart, one of the main ideologues of La Rosa Blanca, and father of another U.S. congressman, Mario, aimed at reactivating the organization. La Rosa Blanca was founded in New York City in 1959. It was the first counter-revolutionary organization made up of henchmen from the Batista's dictatorship that ran away from their abuses and crimes. From the beginning, they allied with the CIA and Dominican dictator Rafael Leonidas Trujillo to organize an uprising in the Cambrai Mountains. As from 1959, they burned down schools, sugarcane fields, houses and factories, wounding and maiming a large number of people and causing extensive damage. Then among the numerous plagues ravaging Latin America appears dengue, with a high mortality rate and no distinction between children and adults. El Salvador does not escape this reality, and the Cuban doctors do not make distinctions to save lives. It was some years back. First my eldest daughter fell ill with dengue. But it was the classic type. Then the little one fell ill, but it was hemorrhagic dengue. So I get home and said to my wife, let's go to the National Hospital to have the Cuban doctors look after her. The Cuban lady doctor took care of her. She said if she makes it through the night, she'll be all right. The doctor stayed up all night with the girl, and she lived. The detention of international terrorist Francisco Chávez Abarca by Venezuelan officials confirms the existence of a path of terror, coordinated and funded from the top echelons of U.S. power, with mechanisms still in force and strong today against Latin American nations holding policies other than those of the imperial interests. Their objective was to destabilize Venezuela by preventing the resumption of power by President Chávez, especially because Venezuela has this fraternal relationship with Cuba, which Cuban Americans in Miami don't like and don't need. This situation turned Venezuela into a target. There were even 2 Barrett 50 rifles, the gun of choice for Cuban American National Foundation. In August 2010, Washington included Cuba on the list of state sponsors of terrorism published by the State Department every year. The Cuban efforts to engage the U.S. in the fight on terror have failed, and 2010 shows no indication whatsoever of a change. As an evident token of its willingness to stave off terrorism, the Cuban government treasures in its archives large and well-grounded documentation of all communications with Washington. Those are warnings on terrorists in their own soil and proposals aimed at fighting against that scourge of mankind. The current U.S. president carries the burden of previous administrations where intelligence services, corrupt officials, and notorious mercenary people and institutions had aligned with the interests of anti-Cuban terrorist groups. Many hidden truths should come to light if the willingness prevails to make justice in cases like Posada Kurillas and others who walk free in the U.S. Each new piece of evidence on terrorism presented by Cuba justifies the risks and sacrifices to which the Cuban Five heroes, still imprisoned in America, were exposed in their efforts to protect humanity from hatred and death.
Ninguno de los problemas del mundo. Y el del terrorismo.
None of the problems of the world, not even terrorism, can be solved by force, but rather by putting an end to, among other things, state terrorism. May peace be sought for everywhere to protect all peoples from the plague of terrorism.